Not to start the video with a nature break, but right before I hit record, I heard a turkey gobbling somewhere over this hill, and it scared the hell out of me. At some point, you've read or played a Dungeons & Dragons adventure module and realized partway through, my players clearly want to pursue this other goal. Or you've made your very own open world fantasy setting only to realize my players clearly want me to tell them what to do next. And so you've experienced one or both sides of an extremely common problem among game masters and even game designers. Not quite understanding where your fantasy adventure fits between the only two kinds of fantasy role-playing adventures. And no, these categories are not modules and homebrew, or even the traditional sandbox and railroad. But if you know what that means, you're already halfway there. The two types are Dungeons and Dragons. Just kidding. For real this time, they are event-based adventures and location-based adventures. And once you grasp their differences, their strengths and weaknesses, you'll not only be able to recognize which kind of adventure you and your fellow players prefer, but you'll also be able to steal ideas from the other kind that I guarantee will get your stuck D&D campaign to feel fun again. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and here's a definition. Event-based adventure. A session, arc, or campaign of a tabletop role-playing game where the player characters choose or receive a mission with a specific goal. For example, a villain to thwart, a crisis to prevent, or a treasure to claim. This adventure can take place in one room or across worlds, and it can be low stakes or high stakes, but it has a clear climax. The characters complete their mission or they do not. And to really break this down, the defining element of an event-based adventure is that climax, because that story climax is the titular event. The encounter when the characters thwart the villain once and for all, prevent the crisis at the last moment, or finally claim that sweet, sweet loot. This first type of adventure is ideal for players who prefer direction, such as beginners who are still learning the game itself, figuring out how to roleplay, and often don't want the added complication of steering the ship, so to speak. But players of any experience level might prefer event-based adventures for a years-long campaign with an overarching story, or for episodic one-shot style sessions, especially useful at game conventions. Or if these players are just very goal-oriented people who want to feel like they are accomplishing something when they sit down to play. And so, in order to set up that one climactic event, the adventure needs one dominant goal. I'm not going to stand here, don't worry. There can be other goals and side quests and backstory detours along the way, but the more secondary and tertiary missions you introduce as the game master, the more you water down that main event, drawing the player's attention and determination away from that climax, and often leading to the players asking, hey, weren't we supposed to be like stopping General what's-his-name from obtaining the thing? And I know some of you GMs know exactly what I'm talking about there. You felt it when the players really have completely lost the plot. For everyone else, that'll make more sense later when we get to the definition of location-based adventures, and I guess talk about the literal and figurative difference between losing the plot and not needing one. But before that, we're going to do some examples of event-based adventures, and before that, we got to talk about imposing time limitations that can keep your game on track. But before that, a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is not the train, but yeah. But that would be crazy, right? Speaking of time limitations, 2 Minute Tabletop has beautiful hand-drawn maps and tokens that you can easily print at home or drop right into your favorite VTT. Like right now, you can download the free sample pack linked below with a town, forest, dungeon, and 50 creatures, or skim through the full library with hundreds of unique maps for every location you can imagine, and a shocking amount of stuff listed as pay what you want. Why is this all technically free? Ross, is this on purpose? Personally, Personally, I love the style here, especially for these character and monster tokens, over 7,000 and counting, with a free token editor for customization. Plus, you can use the asset packs to customize their maps in Dungeon Draft, Photoshop, and other image editors. Altogether, a great GM resource, so check out 2 Minute Tabletop through my link below so they know who sent you. Alright, one thing I omitted from my definition of an event-based adventure that others may want to include is a time limit. Claim the treasure before the villain does. Thwart the villain before the next full moon. Prevent the crisis before the crisis happens. Or it could be a real-world timer, like 1d4 rounds or a 3-hour countdown, because that's all the time we have to play today. So on one hand, a timer can enhance the thrill of an event-based adventure by pushing the players with a sense of urgency, almost like a competitive twist now racing against the clock. However, I insist that timers should be optional because depending on the level of urgency, timers can absolutely prevent goal-oriented players from having fun. Take, for example, one of my favorite official D&D campaign modules, the Tomb of Annihilation. From the outset, the party is told about the death curse, so they know that the souls of anyone who dies are no longer reaching other planes of existence, and that any living person who's ever been resurrected is now succumbing to death day by day. So the players in this campaign may want to explore the wild jungle of Chult, detailed on a beautiful hex map with a few dozen enticing locations, but for every day they spend searching a new corner of the map, or fighting cool monsters that they didn't need to fight, or talking with an interesting non-player character who doesn't have information pertinent to their mission, every one of those detours and side quests means that more non-player characters around the world are dying. You are wasting time and lives and souls. So if you're a real hero, you better get your butt in gear and go stop the death curse now. Okay, so you can see how this setup of the dominant goal plus high stakes plus a timer turns that goal into a singular priority that feels more like work than a fun quest. And that is how you turn an event-based adventure into a railroad, by discouraging the players from following the fun in the moment and limiting their agency regarding when and how they can achieve their main goal. Not to mention, many players, especially beginners who are still learning the game, might not enjoy having the added pressure of deadlines in their fantasy game escapism, reminding them of all the real-world obligations they should really ought to be doing instead, like watching every Bob World Builder YouTube video. But for an example of how I think timers can enhance an event-based adventure without spoiling the fun, I'd like to point to another module, an adventure that I wrote, so it's kinda homebrew as well, in which a lakeside village has come under threat by a mysterious chime that sounds each night from the depths of the lake. So yeah, there's this very loose timer that mainly serves as a call to action, but after the characters make that initial decision, okay, let's try to solve this problem, then they get to explore the dungeon beneath the lake, fighting some monsters, finding some treasure, uncovering some lore about what's happening here, and rescuing a villager or two. The final room is a stage set for a climactic boss battle with an undead/alien/clockwork creature, and as written, when that boss drops below half its hit points, it misfires a laser which starts flooding the entire dungeon with only a 4-round timer. This last-minute timer enhances the climax of the adventure right at the end where it counts, not rushing the characters along the way. Thus, if your group's RPG campaign has one clear goal, setting up for a fun climax, you are playing an event-based adventure. And if your players seem stuck, just like they're not having fun as they were a few sessions ago, it's probably because they feel obligated to work towards that one goal when they'd rather just do something else for a little while. Of course, ask them why they're not having fun, but that's probably it. So you solve that problem by pausing or slowing any timers in place, and most importantly, introducing some potential side quests for them to enjoy, a la shifting the playstyle toward that of a location-based adventure. So, here's a definition. Location-based adventure, a session, arc, or campaign of a tabletop role-playing game where the player characters explore one place with one or more generic goals in mind. For example, fight monsters, protect people, and/or seek treasure. This location can be one room or the multiverse, and there can be low or high stakes, but there is no clear climax. The characters leave the location when they fully explore it or when they simply feel ready to move on. Now, with the context of the event-based adventure, this second type should be much easier to understand right away, but one confusing point might be the name. How is it location-based if that location can be the multiverse? And I agree, that's a little weird. I came up with these definitions, but I did not come up with these names. So let's explain. In the absence of a climactic event where the player characters would succeed or fail at their ultimate goal, there is no plot for the story of these characters. There is only the setting, the unique combination of the various monsters, treasure, and non-player characters we meet along the way. Therefore, the location where all those people, places, and things were encountered, whether it's a room or the multiverse, becomes the only consistent foundation and the defining element for this type of adventure. So sure, if I were to rename these two categories, I would choose something like plot-based and setting-based, or for a little more flavor, destination-based and journey-based. Honestly, dragons and dungeons are not that bad of names for these two categories. Whatever the name, this second type of adventure is ideal for intermediate and experienced players who have the confidence to choose their own goals and know when to move on without quest givers and predetermined climaxes. However, little counterintuitively, this style is also great for casual players who are showing up to the game for social interaction more than to accomplish goals in a fantasy world. So just as event-based adventures have a wide appeal because everyone loves a good ending, location-based adventures have a wide appeal because everyone loves to enjoy the moment. This also means location-based adventures rarely have timers to build toward a big ending, but there may be timers within scenes or short quests similar to what we discussed earlier. For one example, I recently wrote a one-page location-based adventure, The Countless False Gods of Stone Man Swamp. Technically one spread of digest-size pages, where the characters are simply encouraged to, quote, wade into this flooded forest to steal a lucky stone idol from the throne of Gorstein the Basilisk. So this adventure is a single wilderness hex broken into a few areas, each with some brief descriptive details, a potential danger or two, a note on how you might want to creatively interact with that potential danger, and a note on treasure. There is no plot, no ongoing dark ritual, no MacGuffin of ultimate power, no scheming villain. The only timer is when you check for random encounters, and of course your 1 hour torches because it's designed for Shadow Dark. And yeah, you might be tempted to call this a sandbox, but to me, a true sandbox is where a campaign can easily get stuck, because hear me out, the players have too much freedom. As in an actual sandbox, players may be paralyzed by so many options around them, or some of the options are basically empty places on a map. They are so mundane or so disconnected from other parts of the setting that the world doesn't react in a fun way when the players choose to interact with that thing. Both of those little problems lead to players asking, hey, what are we supposed to be doing here? Versus, in The Countless False Gods of Stone Man Swamp, the only options presented here will react to the player characters positively or negatively, depending on how they choose to interact with it. And if you like how that sounds, you can get a copy of this adventure very soon by late pledging on my recent Kickstarter, link below. This mini adventure was a stretch goal that I finished early, so backers will get the PDF in the next few days. All other rewards will follow the timeline on Kickstarter, including that physical tier backers will also get a physical cardstock copy of this adventure and the other stretch goals when everything ships out later this year. Or, for a fun challenge, tomorrow only, April 1st, 2026, you can visit startplaying.com, and if you complete their Shadow Dark Mode puzzle, you'll receive this PDF as a prize. But today, thank you for watching, thanks to our awesome sponsor, thanks to my amazing patrons and YouTube members for directly supporting what I do. Keep building.